Hi, I'm Austin Fest, and today we're going to be talking about motor vehicle safety. So before we dive into the general requirements of the vehicle, let's look at this picture. So there's several violations. Many of them you can see. You have the forks bent. You also have a hydraulic line, or a line that could be hydraulic, that could be leaking fluid, which is highly flammable, and any spark around it or made by the forklift could set it off and then engulf it in flames. You have several spots that's taped or tied together, could be covering up cracks. You have probably all four tires are flat. You also have a box on top which looks loaded. So, and then you got a guy sitting on the back that's not buckled in, of course, and he could fall off and risk his life by getting run over. You also have some fuzzy dice that looks right in eye level that's preventing his vision. So these are some of the some violations that we can see. There's also, looks like oil leaking out of the bottom, but there could be other violations that we can't see. Some of these could be like service brakes, the hand brake and emergency brake, which is required for this, because you want to check that every time, because you don't want to be driving and all of a sudden realize that your brakes are done. You also need tires that are inflated to their proper PSI. That's written on the tire usually. A horn to alert people, maybe your brakes don't work and you gotta alert people that you're coming in. And a steering mechanism, which, I mean, you gotta make sure that your steering wheel works to help you steer. You also need coupling devices and seat belts. Seatbelt is why the guy on the back is in violation. I'm sure we've all gotten a car with too many people in it, and some people may not have seatbelts on, maybe none of them do. And that's where it gets really dangerous. If you get into a car crash, you're not locked into the seat, you start flying, and it gets really dangerous. You should also have operating controls. Some more requirements, you have lights, which looks like his is tied on at the top. Reflectors, windshield wipers to help in the rain, defrosters in case it gets foggy or it gets iced up, and a fire extinguisher in case a fire does break out. You have the fire extinguisher within reach to maybe help the fire to extinguish it. So now we're going to go into the second part. We have material handling equipment. And this is from, it looks like a trade show where they're showing off their new equipment for the new year. So here's some common vehicle handling. So we have excavators, forklifts, cranes, which the cranes could be tower cranes, mobile cranes, backhoes, and skid steers. There's also a number more that I did not mention. So some excavating and other equipment. So you need to have it you need to know the rated capacity. That way you don't go over the capacity. And also there should not be any modifications without the consent or written approval of the manufacturer. And there should not be any steering knobs, which are the things that you screw onto your steering wheel. That way you can use one hand to turn around and stuff like that. That's not allowed, because they could fall off while you're steering and stuff like that. And there should only be authorized personnel using the equipment, because you don't want somebody just jumping in and using these this highly expensive, dangerous equipment around on a construction site with a lot of people around. So some of the pile driving equipment. So you should make sure that it does not obscure. There's nothing obscuring your vision while you're operating it. You need stop blocks and your lead. So the next thing is unattended vehicles. You do not want to leave any of your vehicles unattended, because things like this could happen where all of a sudden you get out and all of a sudden you turn around and the vehicle's rolling and somebody doesn't hear it or see it, and tragedy could happen. So you need to make sure you set the parking brake, and they need to make sure that you have the appropriate lights and reflectors on them. So a seatbelt, I mean, we went over this, but you need to, your seatbelt's very important, because you could, if you hit a bump or something, you could fall out and all of a sudden the vehicle's still rolling because you didn't put on the brake, and you could fall out like this lady did. It should be provided on all equipment, and you should only have the correct number of people in the vehicle. You should not exceed that number. So this picture is actually from my job site over the summer. It was in West Lafayette, where they were trying to empty the trash can, so they were taking it away, and this is actually pretty much our only access to the road, where everybody walks through there every day. I was just about to go through there for my lunch break. That's why I was standing here and watching it. But luckily, I didn't. Instead of walking by thinking no big deal, luckily I watched it. And the side of it, as you can see, it dug in, and that caused the whole dumpster to tip. And once the weight got too great, it just took the whole truck. It just tipped the whole thing. And luckily, nobody was in the way. Everybody was smart enough to stay out of the way whenever this was going on. And it took about probably a couple hours to clean up and straighten up. So this is access roadways and grades. So you need to make sure that things like this that don't happen, like the soil was too loose, so that's why it started digging in on that part. And so the moving of construction equipment, make sure they don't loosen up the gravel, or the soil, and cause things unforeseeable to happen. And you need the restraining and control of runaway vehicles, because if you get out, make sure you set the parking brake. That way, all of a sudden, the vehicle doesn't run away. So the brakes, they need to be capable of stopping the equipment with the max load. If you go over the max load, it should still be able to take it, but you should not go over that max load. If you're on a grade, you need to make sure that you're capable of stopping on that grade, and you need to do a safety check before each.
Am I interrupting?
No, you're good. Before each time you operate the vehicle. So for fenders, you need to have them above 15 miles an hour if your vehicle goes above that, and a variance may be provided if you do not have it. So for audible alarms, we have the bidirectional audible alarms. They should be distinguishable from surrounding noise, because it's a construction site, so it's noisy. You need to make sure people are able to hear it. And that should be on whenever you go into reverse. And if you do not have the audible alarm, the ground guides could help. Have somebody behind you telling you when you can back up and when there's people back there. Next, we're going to watch a OSHA video, which is about 3 minutes long, about these alarms and why they're so important.
In the U.S., more than 800 construction workers die every year while on the job. Being struck by vehicles, heavy equipment, and other objects is the top cause of injuries and the second cause of death for construction workers, killing more than 150 workers in 2009. But these injuries and deaths can be prevented. The video you're about to see shows how quickly struck-by accidents at construction sites can lead to worker deaths. The video will also show what employers must do so that the work can be done more safely. Employers have a responsibility to provide a safe workplace and required protective equipment. You'll see that taking the right protective steps saves lives. Please be advised, the scenes you're about to see deal with deaths at construction sites and might be disturbing for some people. All scenes are based on true stories. A surveyor was spray painting the ground to outline the area for a new building pad. At the same time, the driver of a wheel tractor scraper was moving forward to get the ground ready for pad construction. There was no spotter at the site, and there was no internal traffic control plan in place. Before backing up to go over the ground again, the driver checked his rear view and side mirrors. He didn't see anyone in his mirrors, so he backed up. The driver's backup alarm didn't work, so the surveyor did not hear the scraper coming towards her. As the driver backed up, he ran over the surveyor. She died from the injuries. Let's look at the events leading up to this tragic incident and see how it could have been prevented. When a vehicle on a construction site has an obstructed view to the rear, OSHA's standard requires employers to provide that vehicle with a working backup alarm or a spotter on site to tell the driver when it is safe to back up. Now let's see what happens when protective measures are in place. Although there is now a working backup alarm, it is barely audible over the background noise. So as an added safety measure, there's also a spotter on site wearing a reflective vest. There's also an internal traffic control plan in place. This plan helps protect workers because it tells the drivers of moving vehicles and equipment the safest way to move around the work site. So this time, before backing up, the scraper's driver waits for the spotter's signal so he knows the area is clear to enter. Now, as the driver reverses, the backup alarm can be heard, and no workers are near the scraper. This example shows the importance of employers following OSHA's vehicle safety standards for construction sites to ensure that workers are provided with a safe workplace. These types of construction worker deaths are preventable. The protective measures shown here save workers' lives. Please follow OSHA's safety standards at work sites. It could be the difference between life and death. If you would like more information, contact OSHA at www.osha.gov or 1-800-321-OSHA. That's 1-800-321-6742.
That was a great video showing you why it's important to follow safety procedures. So next we're going to talk about scissor points. You need guards and make sure that the areas are clear before operation. In the picture you can see that looks like somebody's working on the dump truck while somebody's still in the truck, so they may not know that he is there. And there should also be a block that is, whenever you're working on it, there, that way in case the hydraulics do give out, that the block still holds it. So some site clearing. So you need protection from the hazards, that way in case something flies up and hits you, you need to make sure that you're protected from that. Rollover guards in case you accidentally do roll over in a vehicle, and overhead and a rear canopy. So this next video is gonna kind of review the requirements of or on your vehicle.
Motor vehicles as covered by this part are those vehicles that operate within an off-highway job site, not open to public traffic. The requirements of this section do not apply to the equipment for which the rules are prescribed in subsection 1926.602.
My name is Anthony Bowman, and I will be demonstrating the components of an off-road dump truck.
All vehicles shall have a service brake system, an emergency brake system, and a parking brake system. These systems may use common components and shall be maintained in an operable position. Hold on. Whenever visibility conditions warrant additional light, all vehicles or combinations of vehicles in use shall be equipped with at least 2 headlights and 2 taillights in operable condition. All vehicles or combination of vehicles shall have brake lights in operable condition regardless of light conditions. All vehicles shall be equipped with an adequate audible warning device at the operator station and in an operable condition. The vehicle has a reverse signal alarm audible above the surrounding noise level, or the vehicle is backed up only when an observer signals that it is safe to do so. The vehicle is backed up only when an observer signals that it is safe to do so. All vehicles shall be equipped with an adequate audible warning device at the operator station and in an operable condition. All vehicles with cabs shall be equipped with windshields and powered wipers. Cracked and broken glass shall be replaced. Vehicles operating in areas or under conditions that cause fogging or frosting of the windows shall be equipped with operable defogging or defrosting devices. All vehicles with cabs shall be equipped with windshield and powered wipers. Cracked and broken glass shall be replaced. Vehicles operating in areas or under conditions that cause fogging or frosting of the windshields shall be equipped with operable defogging or defrosting devices. All haulage vehicles whose payload is loaded by means of cranes, power shovels, loaders, or similar equipment shall have a cab shield and or canopy adequate to protect the operator from shifting or falling materials. Seat belts and anchorages meeting the requirements of 49 CFR Part 571 Department of Transportation Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards shall be installed in all motor vehicles. Trucks with dump bodies shall be equipped with positive means of support, permanently attached and capable of being locked in position to prevent accidental lowering of the body while making or inspection work is done. Operating levers controlling hoisting or dumping devices on haulage bodies shall be equipped with a latch or other device which will prevent accidental starting or tripping of the mechanism. Trip handles for tailgates of dump trucks shall be so arranged that in dumping the operator will be clear. All rubber-tired motor vehicle equipment manufactured on or after May 1st, 1972 shall be equipped with fenders. All rubber-tired motor vehicle equipment manufactured before May 1st, 1972 shall be equipped with fenders not later than May 1st, 1973. Mud flaps may be used in lieu of fenders whenever motor vehicle equipment is not designed for fenders. All vehicles in use shall be checked at the beginning of each shift to ensure that the following parts, equipment, and accessories are in safe operating condition and free of apparent damage that could cause failure while in use. Service brakes including trailer brake connections, parking system, emergency stopping system, tires, horn, steering mechanism, coupling devices, seat belts, operating controls, and safety devices. All defects shall be corrected before the vehicle is placed in service. These requirements also apply to equipment such as lights, reflectors, windshield wipers, defrosters, fire extinguishers, etc., where such necessary equipment is present.
And that video was just a review over the requirements on the vehicle. So next we're going to look at some marine operations and equipment. As you can see, this crane was not following the procedures. If you do not, very bad things can happen and tragedy can happen. Hopefully nobody was hurt in this accident. So some of the material handling operations on marine vehicles. So you have longshoring, which is the employees that are putting the cargo or stuff on the vessels. You have shore to vessel, which is what we just saw was the crane operating on land going to the vessel. You have vessel to shore, which is taking the cargo from the vessel of the boat to the land, and vessel to vessel, which is boat to boat. And you have access to barges, so you should have ramps, sideboards, and they should all be well maintained and not deteriorating. That's to protect the workers working on the side so they don't fall over. And so the working surfaces of barges, they should be they're not slippery or wet. In case they do slip and fall, they should have guardrails and grab rails, and they should have fall protection when required on the side. Some of the first aid and life-saving equipment should have a life ring available. That way, in case somebody falls over, they throw it to them and help save them. A ladder, and some life vests. Because if you're working around the edge, you should have a life vest on in case you do fall overboard. Just because you can swim doesn't mean you can't drown. And that is the end of the motor vehicle safety presentation. Thank you.